Praise Allah, Mo.
Praise Allah.
I'm glad you got this shirt on. That's a good one.
Yeah, so I'm gonna come casual tonight.
$20 seconds.
Wait a second.
Slave to our freedom.
The young brother was downright eloquent with his misinformed soliloquy. He said using nigger affectionately among ourselves takes the negativity out of the word, but that no other race of people can use it ever but us. Huh. And you thought that kind of reasoning existed only in the Twilight Zone. Then again, the Twilight Zone was a TV show, and the plight of black America is tragic reality. Somebody said the revolution would not be televised. They didn't say anything about our devolution, which is well documented. You see it every day in our disrespect for one another. You can hear it in our sad excuse for artistry.
Slave to our freedom.
As we continue to squander our brilliant cultural legacy as musicians, poets, educators, and inventors. We call our women bitches and hoes. In a vivid exhibition of self-repulsion, we refer to ourselves as niggas. In our quest for acceptance and our relentless worship of bling, we have shared our sense of dignity and self-worth. It didn't used to be this way. Ironically, back when we fought for the opportunities we now abuse, that is when we stood tallest. Out of our torturous struggle for equality morphed a mighty pride and honor.
Slave to our freedom.
But now our pride is built on hollow motives and aimless ambitions. Today, to identify our oppressor, the modern black American need look no further than his own mirror. All of us aren't lost. Many of us know damn well that the emperor is butt naked. Every day we fight the good fight. But high praise for low thinking has taken its toll on generations. When so many are lost, there is enough blame to go around. When Martin Luther King Jr. prophesied the black man one day reaching the so-called promised land, he said,
I might not get there with you.
Lord knows he didn't think we'd end up here.
Islam, before we recite the Moorish American prayer, and before we read from the Moorish Holy Quran, I have in my hand the obituary, the whole going ceremony of our brother and treasure, Brother Navi Lynch-Bey. This is his daughter. We're going to talk about her in a little while, but today is her birthday. And being that today is her birthday, before we say the prayer, Navi asked us to sing her a song. So at this time, I'd like to sing Happy Birthday to Alicia. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Alicia Way. Happy birthday to you. Praise Allah and honor to the Prophet, Noble Jew Ali. At this time, I'd like to recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which we draw our strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First off, I'd like to rise, circling the camel's hump, giving praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. I'd like to give honor to Allah's holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Jew Ali. I'd like to give honor to Prophet Noble Jew Ali because it was he who reached down into the watery grave of Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and the beast, which are the attributes of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything is harm, and set you and me back upright on our feet again. I'd like to give honor to the forerunner to the Prophet Noble Jew Ali, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I'd like to give honor to Marcus Mosiah Garvey because this brother had to have pure thoughts in order to pave the way for love. I'd like to give honor to all literature pertaining to Islam in the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'd like to give honor to our two flags, Just Solely and Just So Quintus, the right of soul and the right of blood, and honor to our charter that gives us the right to function in these United States and throughout the world without molestation of ridicule of any kind. I'd like to give honor to effort because so many of us don't even try. I'd like to give honor to the Lynch-Bey family for their wills and their ways and the things that God put in your life for you to overcome. I'd like to give honor to Temple number 2. And last but not least, I'd like to give honor to self, because in self, every round gets higher and higher. At this time, I want to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the 7 seals that they talk about in Revelation. And it said that none was able to open and read from its sacred pages the messages of purity and love. So today, the chapter that I'm going to read is about resurrection. And the reason why I'm going to read about resurrection today is because in a couple of days that they that worship it and serve it will have what is known as Christmas. As I said a little while back, a few weeks ago, in December when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was living, all of the brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam had to fast during this month of December. And the reason why they fasted during the month of December to keep them away from Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast, which are the attributes that we take on during this season. So right now I'd like to read from chapter 18. And the title of this chapter is The Resurrection of Jesus. Pilate places the Roman seal upon the stone door of the tomb. At midnight, a company of the Silent Brotherhood marched about the tomb. The soldiers are alarmed. Jesus teaches to the spirits in prison. Early Sunday morning, he rises from the tomb. The soldiers are bribed by the priest to say that the disciples had stolen the body. I'd like to read from verses 34 and 35, and is read on this wise. And then the white-robed form trampled on the Roman seal, and then he took it into shreds he took the mighty stone in his hand as though it were a pebble from the brook and cast it to the side. Thus we just had a reading of the Moorish Holy Quran, divinely prepared by our holy prophet Noble Drew Ali for our earthly and our divine salvation. So I was saying when I first opened up that when you look at the 7 seals, it said none was able to open and read from the sacred pages the messages of purity and love. And I'm going to show you why right now. I'm going to give you some understanding of this verse 34 that I just read, because you don't hear about this in the church. And in hope that you and I can apply it to our life. It said, and then the white robe form, talking about Jesus, trampled on the Roman seal. That means he stood on those things that Rome was teaching you and me. You know in the Moorish Quran we have Roman numbers because we are still in Rome. But he said he trampled on the Roman seal. And he said he took and he tore it into shreds. He took the mighty stone in his hand as though it were a pebble from the brook and cast it to the side. So you know when they're talking about the tomb of Jesus, they say that the tomb of Jesus, outside of the door of the tomb was a big stone. But in this verse, it's telling us that Jesus took this big stone that was on the door and threw it, cast it into the brook as though it were a pebble. So what he is telling us that all these foes that he think that is so hard to conquer down here on the plane of things made manifest, you can overcome it. You can overcome whatever you want and what you think is so hard for you to overcome. What is so big for you to overcome, you can take this little foe, cast it into the brook as though it were a pebble. And this is how Jesus is telling you about resurrection. Because resurrection means rising above the dead. What do that mean? When you are living according to hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms, which are the attributes of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything in harm, and cast that aside, then you are resurrected. You are being born again. Being born again means changing your thought pattern. Because Jesus and Nicodemus was talking. And Jesus told Nicodemus, hey, chump, you must be born again. And Nicodemus said, must I go back through my mother's womb? Jesus said, no. That which is of the flesh is of the flesh, and that which is of the spirit is of the spirit. We'll go back into this another time, but we're going to do that when you visit the Moorish Science Temple of America, because we have a lot to tell you. Now, December the 25th, we're celebrating Christmas. Now, you know when you look in the Bible, it tells you about Jesus having lamb's hair like wool. And it tells you that he was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the house of David. And it said that his father and mother was Joseph and Mary. And when you begin to talk about Joseph and Mary, you have to talk about Ruth the Moabite. Because Ruth the Moabite, she's talking about Solomon and she's talking about David. So all of these is of the genealogy from which we come. So now, let me read this. I'm going to read something from the Bible. And what I'm going to read from the Bible is going to coincide with Christmas. Because Christmas is the day on which Jesus was born, so to say. But we know that the only time that it snows in Africa is up in the hills sometime. And when they telling you that it snow during Christmas, they're taking you from one part of the country and taking you somewhere else. So let me read this. It says, for the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it moveth not. We're talking about the Christmas tree. Now, those in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we don't put up the Christmas tree because of what it tells us in the Bible. We don't put up the Christmas tree because we knew that they took my man Jesus, buried him in Vatican Square, and took on the name. So the Moorish Americans, who are the descendants of the ancient Moabites, who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa, is of the same line genealogy as Jesus. So when you see a Moorish American say he do not honor December the 25th as being Christmas, it's only because of the Nicene Council, the Nicene Creed, taking Jesus and burying him in Vatican Square. Now Charleston Heston and Ricky Nelson is looking like Jesus. And so much that my family is into Christmas. And I want to give them a card. I want to give them a present. And the little children in the Moorish Science Temple, they cry during this time of year because they are not able to get toys for Christmas. And they can only get theirs in January the 8th, which is our Christmas in the Moorish Science Temple of America, because whenever a nation is in need for a prophet, Allah will send one. So Allah sent Noble Ali with the methodology that's conducive to our growth and development. So our Christmas is January the 8th. Now, there was a time that I thought about sneaking around and giving my people a card or giving my people a present during the time of Christmas. But if I would have did that, then I'd be a fake. Because if you know that Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the house of David, if you know that they put Jesus on the cross, if you know that they stole your genealogy and you represent that day, but you only do that once a year. Before you do that all year long, you talking bad about the government, you talking the revolutionary talk, you talking about kill talk, you talking all that talk about what took place with us during the advent of slavery, but the same ones that put us in these conditions, you honoring their customs, you honoring their culture, you honoring their heritage, you honoring their tradition. Navi and myself was talking to a woman that's over there where he had in the hospital. She's a Tibetan. And she was talking about the customs, the culture, the heritages, and the traditions, and how her people come over here in America and lose all of that of which they forefathers and take on these other common customs and mere ideas of man. So it's Christmas time. And I don't want you to look negative at the Moorish Americans for not participating in these holidays, because we are citizens. There's a flag, we fly. But this is the great melting pot, and in this great melting pot, everybody have their own custom, culture, heritage, and tradition. And it look real funny for me to have the same religion of those that put me in slavery. Because evidently we praying to the same God. You praying to the same God the European praying to, and God is favoring somebody and not you. So now, Drew Ali tell us to honor our forefathers. Drew Ali tell us to honor the laws of this government. However, we got to be who we are and not who we seem to be. We are not reactionaries. And watch how many brothers and how many sisters that sell all that revolution talk. Watch what they do during the advent of Christmas. Watch what they do during December the 25th. Watch these attributes that they take on. You know who you are? Remind me of a brother I knew. Brother told me, he said, man, I'm tired of living. And he got a razor, and every day he would cut his hand. He was inside the joint. He would cut his arm. So when I come in the room and seeing all them cuts on his hand, I said, man, you faking. If you want to kill yourself, you should have took that razor and just cut your throat. And that's what we need to learn as a people. You can't serve two masters at the same time. You got to be who you are and who your forefathers were. Because man today is what his forefathers were yesterday, and there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extend beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. So all of you who getting ready to buy them presents for Christmas, knowing that Rome took our forefathers, buried them in Vatican Square, and took on the name, you a chump, you faking, you ain't who you say you are. You don't even have that spirit yet. See, it say, let that spirit, old man, actuate and direct the flesh. So your spirit is not actuating and directing your flesh. So I'll be back, because we had the Mo right here today. We had Brother Boston Hill here. And he want to talk to you because he's going to talk about the royal blood. Because they've been talking all week about somebody in the Vatican is getting ready to marry this girl, and they're going to be of royal blood. But what I'm going to do today, I'm going to call the chairman of this temple, who is of royal blood, because nobody could steal that blood from him, because Jew Ali say, we are of the true blood of the ancient Canaanites and the Moabites and inhabitants of Africa. So without further ado, I'd like to call my brother and my friend, Brother A. Bostonier.
Praise Allah. Islam. And just want to say, feel blessed to be back on the Moore's Voice show again. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be before our Portland listening audience and to teach the things necessary to make our people better citizens according to the Prophet's literature. I want to give extend honors to the Sheikh for the portion that he brought, opening up the show, and also want to extend Moore's greetings to all the Moors here, there, and everywhere, especially to our brother man, true and faithful Moore here in Moore Science Temple of America, Temple 2, Portland, Oregon, Brother Navi Lynch-Bey. Want to say that it is truly a blessing to be in the land of the living today. So I praise Allah and thank Allah for His grace and His mercy, because I know that without His grace and mercy, what would I have, or what would I be? But I'm going to take my reading from chapter 15 from the Moorish Holy Quran, and it's found on page 23 of Moorish Holy Quran, and this is chapter 15, and it's entitled Divine Ministry of Jesus. Jesus goes to the wilderness for self-examination, where he remains 40 days, is subjected to 3 temptations. He overcomes, returns to the camps of John, and begins teaching. And these are the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet. And I'm going to begin in verse 1. It says, the harbinger had paved the way. The logos had been introduced to men as love made manifest. And he must now begin his divine ministry. And he went forth into the wilderness to be alone with Allah, that he might look into his inner heart and note its strength and worthiness. And with himself he talked. He said, my lower self is strong. By many ties I am bound down to carnal life. Have I the strength to overcome and give my life a willing sacrifice for men? When I shall stand before the face of men and they demand a proof of my messiahship, what will I say? And then the tempter came and said, if you be the Son of Allah, command these stones to turn to bread. And Jesus said, who is it that demands a test? It is no sign that one is a son of Allah because he does a miracle. The devils can do mighty things. Did not the Gentile magicians do great things before the Pharaoh? My words and deeds in all the walks of life shall be the proof of my messiahship. And then the tempter said, if you will go into Jerusalem and from the temple pinnacle cast down yourself to earth, the people will believe you are the Messiah sent from Allah. This you can surely do, for did not David say, he gives his angels charge concerning you, and with their hands they will uphold, lest you shall fall. And Jesus said, I would not tempt the Lord my God Allah. And then the tempter said, look forth upon the world. Behold his honors and his fame. Behold his pleasures and his wealth. If you will give your life to these, they shall be yours. But Jesus said, away from me all tempting thoughts. My heart is fixed. I spurn this carnal self with all its vain ambition and its pride. For 40 days did Jesus wrestle with his carnal self. His higher self prevailed. He then was hungry, but his friends had found him, and they ministered to him. Then Jesus left the wilderness, and in the consciousness of holy breath, he came into the camps of John and taught. And I just took a reading from the Moorish Holy Quran, the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet. I read from chapter 15, Divine Ministry of Jesus, and I read that chapter in its entirety, verses 1 through 17. And what I want to talk about tonight, I want to talk a little bit about this chapter, and I want to talk a little bit about this divine ministry of Jesus, because in this chapter it was saying that Jesus goes to the wilderness for self-examination. Now the prophet Noble Drew Ali said when he was speaking to a group of Moors, when he first started this national and divine movement, when he founded the first temple in 1913 AD, the prophet Noble Drew Ali was speaking before a group of Moors, and he said, I brought you everything it takes to save a nation. Now take it and save yourself. Now when he was speaking before this audience of Moors, he was holding up the Holy Quran. He was holding up the Quran questionnaire. But we have a chapter in here, it's chapter 6. It talks about when they seen Jesus, he had 3 things in his hand: the compass, square, and the axe. And we do have our compass and our square and our axe. And this compass and square and the divine constitution and bylaws be that other tool. But what I want to talk about is this, because I've been talking to a lot of different people associated with this movement. And I want to begin by saying that it says that Jesus went into the wilderness for self-examination. Now, the lesson itself, and this is what the Moors and the Moor Science Temple of America is teaching, you know, according to the prophet Noble Drew Ali, you know, that we go into the wilderness for self-examination. And the lesson itself, because over every temple in Egypt, it says, man, know thyself. Okay, so he goes to the wilderness for self-examination. So I was talking to an individual the other day, and you know, it's not strange and it's no accident, because law governs all events, what the lesson says. Okay. And then I was talking to an individual the other day, and I was like, man, how come you ain't been to your meetings, brother? We ain't seen you, ain't heard from you, brother. We thought you might have fell off the face of the earth, you know. And the brother said, oh, man, I've been going through this and I've been going through that, you know. But I want to say this, because people always have an excuse, the reason why they don't do things. And that's why, like when the Sheikh says, when he gives his praise and honors, he says he gives honors to effort, because so many of us don't even try. Now, I was having this conversation with the brother, and I was telling him, I said, you know what? You ain't going through no more than what anybody else is going through. We all going through some things. You know what? But the chapter 1 in the creation and fall of man of the Moorish Holy Quran says, a multitude of lessons man must learn upon the plane of soul. And here he tarries many ages until his lessons are learned. Now, I'm going to give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about when it comes to the foe, as what the Sheikh was talking about. Now, the prophet Noble Drew Ali says, without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. Okay, so here's my example. When I went in the military, when I enlisted in the military, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for a lot of veterans and a lot of military people when I say this. When we went through enlisted in the military, you know, one of the first things that we had to do is we had to get with the curriculum. We had to get with the methodology of what it was to be a soldier. And, you know, going through basic training, we learned the basics. See, because I had no idea, 17 years old, you know, just finished my junior year out of high school. Didn't have no idea what it meant to, you know, what it was like to be out there in you know, on fighting a foreign enemy, or fighting anybody for that matter. You know what I'm saying? So then we had to go through basic training. So we had to learn, we had to be conditioned to learn a whole lot of stuff, because see, a lot of brothers that went in the military, and I'm speaking for all of us veterans and everybody that's in the military, we had to go through the basic training to learn the basics so that we can move on to the next level. Like the Sheikh says, every rim gets higher and higher. But you know what? Well, people will be making up excuses for why they can't come to their meeting, or why they can't pay their dues and assessments, see? And, but what I want to really point out is this. See, you can make all the excuses all day long, but if you don't get up off your tail and do nothing, then the problem still exists. Now, the prophet brought us all these divine teachings right here so that we can elevate ourselves and come up out of this lower self, this hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything in harms, and be our higher self, which is justice, mercy, love, and right. This is what the higher self breeds: justice, mercy, love, and right. But people make excuses, see. But you know, you have to be conditioned. You have to be conditioned. And the Prophet Noble Drew Ali has a lesson in this book for anything and everything that ails you. Because see, these conditions and these situations in your life, you weren't born with that. You wasn't born with that. You know, people say, oh, I was born in sin. You was not born in sin. Islam teaches that a man was not born in sin. You see what I'm saying? Because everybody have to start off with a fresh, clean slate, you know, coming into this life. You know, so I was telling the brother, I said, well, you know, you making all these excuses, you know, me and my girlfriend, we were going through this breakup and things like that, man. I'm, you know, this, you know, but people have a tendency to make excuses for the reason why they don't want to do nothing. So the Prophet took away all excuses when he founded the Moorish Zion Temple of America. So if you don't get in your lessons, if you don't attend your meetings, if you don't keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Zion Temple of America, you know, half the people in the Moorish Zion Temple of America got the Prophet's literature and don't even study. It's very, very rarely do we see anybody on the YouTube or whatever the case may be. Very well do I hear about anybody teaching from the Prophet's literature. You know, everybody teaching their own ism, you know, instead of teaching Islamism. See, so with this conditioning, you know, we have all these different situations and circumstances that we're going through. The Mo just lost his daughter, you know, and I can relate to how he's feeling right now because you know, and I can relate to every parent that has lost a child. I lost my oldest son 5 years ago, so I know what the Mo going through because, you know, we as older people, we believe that we should be going before going before our children. But, you know, it's, a lot of situations is coming down where our children are leaving this plane of life before us, you know. So I want to send a message out to all the parents, you know, because in this informational technology type situation that we in right now with everything that's being upgraded, you know, in the informational technology field, you know, and you know, we allow our children to spend so much time. Facebook got them locked in. You know, I don't see how a person can do it. Get on Facebook and just sit all day on Facebook, you know, and things like that. But see, back in the day when I was raised, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for a lot of older people, back in the day, you know, the parents took the time out to help us with our homework, to teach us things necessary to make us better people, you know, in our community and everything like that. So what we need to do is we need to start, you know, we need to get away from the excuses. We need to stop making excuses and start working on yourself. See, because I can't save you. And you can't save me. But the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, I bought you everything it takes to save a nation. Now take it and save yourself. And that's why I get in the Prophet's literature. Because see, I'm the only one that can save myself. See, because there's a lesson in the Holy Quran, chapter 3, Elohim's lessons, the unity of life. He said the only devil from which man must be redeemed is self, the lower self. See, because there's no devil out there, you know. This make-believe devil. You your only devil. You got to dethrone your own devil. You know what I'm saying? Because your own devil is causing you to demonstrate hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harm. See, and when you doing everything that's diametrically opposed to the will of Allah, then you in your lower self. See, but there's not a time that goes by where I don't sit down and at least study. I got a special time that I have in the mornings. As soon as I wake up and refresh myself, you know, the first thing I do is take my reading for the day because this is the source from which I draw my strength. Now, let me go back to the creation and fall of man for a minute. Now, the creation and fall of man says, without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. Now, can you imagine being a soldier with an enemy before you, but you don't have the skills or the ability to be able to defeat this enemy? See, so this is where we need to get into the book we need to get into the literature so that we can equip ourselves to be able to handle this enemy. And this enemy is yourself. There's no enemy outside of you. Your enemy is yourself. That's your biggest foe. That's your biggest foe. And when you don't dethrone that foe, if you don't kill that foe off, then he's gonna take control. See, so there's no excuse that you can tell me the reason why, oh, I ain't been to my meet, man, because this is what I'm going through. Everybody going through stuff in life. I'm going through stuff in life. You see what I'm saying? But I'm not going to sit back and mope. But the one thing I have noticed, and I've been in this movie for a long time, one thing I have noticed is that people don't come, the Moors say they Moors, they don't come to their meeting, they don't pay their dues and assessments, they always got an excuse why they can't come or why they didn't show up. See what I'm saying? But, I mean, if you look outside, you see them everywhere else. You know, you see them in the strip club, the sisters, you know, wearing these revealing clothes. That's not the way the prophet brought the Moors dressed to the Moors. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, we have to get into this book, and you have to identify these conditions that you have. We have inconstancy, we got instability. Now, the lesson said that inconstancy is powerful in the heart of man. Was it talking about your physical heart? Is it talking about the heart of your mind? Because it's definitely not your physical heart, because your physical heart don't feel. See, we have another lesson in the Holy Quran that says it's not in flesh and think, it's not in bones and reason. See. So we need to get into the lessons, and you need to save yourself with these lessons, and you can do it. You can do it. There's nothing too big for Allah. There's nothing too big for God. You know, I hear people say that all the time. But yeah, see, so the lesson is self. And when we go into, when we start experiencing these different things, it's taking us off that course, see, and then we start doing everything that's diametrically opposed to the will of Allah, you know, because somebody was asking me the other day, they say, hey, Boss Anil, are you a Muslim? And I said, no, I'm a Moorish American Muslim, but I had to explain the difference between the word Muslim and the word Muslim. Muslim is Arabic. It means one who submits to the will of Allah. Muslim is English. It also means the same thing. You know, one who submits to the will of Allah. So, you know, we talking about resurrection. We talking about resurrection on the subject matter for the show tonight. And see, the Holy Prophet Noble Ali also teaches us to say that the will of man, when the will of man and the will of Allah are one, the resurrection is a fact. See, the resurrection comes up here. It comes from here. It's not talking about your physical body. It's talking about resurrecting your consciousness. See, so that's why we need to get into the lessons and stop making excuses and stop saying, oh, I'm going to blame this on this. I'm going to blame this on this. This is the reason why I didn't do this. This is the reason why I didn't do that. Because, you know, the prophet took away all the excuses when he founded this Moorish Science Temple of America. You know, and I'm blessed to be a part of this Moorish Science Temple of America. And I was having a conversation with another brother a couple of days ago, and he kept calling me that N-word, and I had to stop the brother, and I had to correct him, and I had to, you know, and I had to show tough love, you know, to this brother, and I had to let him know, man, I'm not that. You need to stop using that terminology when you holding a conversation with me. When we dialoguing about something, you gotta stop doing that, brother, because I'm a Moorish American Muslim. I don't identify with the slave labels that delude, the names that delude the slavery, and that's Negro, black, and color, or African American, you know. And so, you know, I love the prophet's teachings. The prophet has really saved me because, you know, I should have been gone a long time ago. But Allah must have something in store for me because I'm still here. At 59 years old, I'm still here, you know. And my aspiration and my ambition is to be what the Prophet Noble Ali raised me up to be. And he said that he had brought these teachers so that we can be better citizens. See what I'm saying? You can't be a better citizen if you're not, you know, if you're not working on yourself. See, so that, you know, that's what that's all about. That's what that's all about. But I had another One more reading that I'm going to take, then I'm going to call the Sheik back on, because I love hearing my Mo brother teach. But I'm going to bring something out of the book of Matthew, because we was talking about that royal lineage. So I want to talk about this genealogy real quick. It's going to be real quick. Then I'm going to tie this in with the Quran questionnaire. Now, question number 27 out of our Quran questionnaire says, will you give in brief the line genealogy through which Jesus came? And the answer is, some of the great fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary. Now, here is the genealogy from the Gospel according to Matthew out of the Holy Bible. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm going to kind of just skip around and tie this in with the question 27 that I just read. Now, I want y'all to understand that Jesus wasn't always the Christ. Jesus wasn't always the Christ. He was born of Jesus, but he wasn't always the Christ. He had to earn that Christhood. See, and there's a lot of other avatars out there, see, because the definition for Christ means anointed one. See, and there's a lot of other prophets out there that was considered Christ. You know, you have Buddha, you have Confucius, you know, all these was considered had that Christ avatar title. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and read this genealogy real quick. And it said, the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Okay, so then it says, Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judah and his brothers. Okay, so the first one out of 27 says, some of the great fathers to which Jesus came are Abraham. Okay, let's go to Boaz. And it says, Salmon begot Boaz by Rahab, Boaz begot Obed by Ruth, Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David the king. Now it says here, it says Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David. All right, Solomon. And it says David the king begot Solomon by her who had been the wife of Uriah. And if y'all remember that, her name was Bathsheba. And Solomon begot Rehoboam, Rehoboam begot Abijah, and Abijah begot Asa. So then we're going to skip down. And we're going to go to Solomon. We went through Solomon, so let's find Hezekiah. Let's find Hezekiah here. And then it says Uzziah begot Jotham. Jotham begot Ahaz, and Ahaz begot Hezekiah. Hezekiah begot Manasseh. Manasseh begot Amon, and Amon begot Josiah. Okay, and then we get down to the last one. It says Joseph by Mary. And Jacob begot Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. From David until the captivity in Babylon are 14 generations. And from the captivity in Babylon until the Christ are 14 generations. Now, so this Christmas demonstration, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day. They was asking me, do I celebrate Christmas? And I had to demonstrate with them that I don't, because that's not my holiday. You know, and I want you to understand something about Christmas before I get this show back to the sheik real quick, is that the original, the word Christmas used to be, in the beginning, would start out as Christ Mass. And it was spelled Christ, M-A-S-S. It was Christ Mass. But through this indoctrination of taking people into captivity, changed the Christ Mass to Christmas. But Jesus wasn't born in December. Jesus was born in the age of the fish, which is Pisces, so in the springtime, in the month of March. But anyway, it was a pleasure and a blessing to be able to come before our Portland listening audience and to share my portion with our Portland listening audience tonight. I'm always all over the country. May Allah continue to bless you all. And here's the sheik. Peace.
Praise Allah. You know that song we sing in the Moorish Zion Temple, Let the Temple Roll On.
Let the temple roll on.
I'd like to give on to our chairman. That's why I mess with him, because he studied the Quran and the Prophet's literature. If he's one of the most national dudes, and I seen on the Facebook the other day, they had a brother tell me he won the Nationals, and they had his fez, knocked his fez off his head, and I was messed up about that. Remind me of Brother Portillo back in the day. But Brother Bostonier read from chapter 15. And chapter 15 is talking about when Jesus went into the wilderness for self-examination. And they say when he went into the wilderness for self-examination, he was in there for 40 days and 40 nights. And we learn in the Moorish Temple of America that them 40 days are the 4 sacred schools of thought. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, the same reincarnated spirit. He can't be the prophet. I don't care if he raised 1,000 dudes, neither I. But the prophets of Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, the same reincarnated spirit. So the 4 is the 4 sacred schools of thought. So when you go into the wilderness for self-examination, who do you carry with you? You carry the 4 prophets. You carry Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. When we talk about the wilderness, we're not talking about a place where a lot of trees or etc. Because we're talking about going into the wilderness where you stop the weeds from choking the flowers. And how do you stop the weeds from choking the flowers? Now I'm going into the wilderness. I'm going into the wilderness for self-examination. And what do? We had a brother here in Portland. And he came to me day before yesterday and said, man, I'm not going to smoke no more weed even though it's legal. He said, because every time I go into the weed store, I always see somebody in there that know me, that I grew up with, that I went to school with. And he said, because I'm in the Moorish Science Temple and I done been into the wilderness, I'm going to stop going in there because it's misrepresenting Prophet Noble Drew Ali. What a lot of us fail to realize when you begin to talk about the Moorish Science Temple of America, I just heard the chairman talk about Jesus. And he said Jesus was not always the Christ, just like the president we have now was not always the president. But in order to become the Christ, Jesus let certain things go. He let the things of the world go. He passed 7 tests. And this is what the Moorish Science Temple of America is all about. I hear people talking every day about the Moorish Science Temple, but you ain't been in the Drew Ali's Quran yet. You don't talk about things that'll make us better citizens. You don't talk about the things that help us grow, unfold, as does the bud unfold to show the flower. So when you talk about going into the wilderness, when you go into the wilderness, what you do, you start talking to yourself. Say, man, I keep doing this. I know it's wrong. I keep doing that. I know it's wrong, but I don't have the strength to overcome, to give my life a willing sacrifice. But then I look back and see Drew Ali gave us a little, just like he said. He said he gave us 5 folds of man: inconstancy, insufficiency of knowledge, weakness, misery. And these are the lessons that we have to overcome out here on this plane of things made manifest to be better citizens. So we got to stop cussing. We got to stop fornicating. We got to stop hating. We got to stop killing. You can't serve 2 masters at the same time. All my friends are ex-gangsters. All of them right now doing things that diametrically opposed to God. But I'm with these dudes every day. I'm hanging out with them. I'm going to the shows with them. I'm doing everything because I am of that spirit. You can't serve 2 masters at the one time. Association bring about assimilation. So now you got all these people. Brother told me the other day, let's buy black. I don't have no problem like that. I don't know what black is. But if you want to buy black, don't say it's for people, because the same person told me to buy black. He was in here on this one of the brothers' shows talking bad about them. Talking bad about our little brothers who wear their pants down. But when he left out with his wife. And when I looked at his wife, she was of European descent. So now where's this black coming? Because if I buy from him, he ain't gonna do nothing but give her all my money. So it ain't gonna filter in our community. So what do you mean by buy black? See, because if you're not under that mentality, just like in the White House right now, that girl that they just left the White House, she's saying that she was there. She wasn't there for us. She was there with her own agenda. She wasn't even representing us. We don't even come to the forefront. So you can't serve 2 masters at the same time. You need to stand up. G.R. Lee said, take your place in the affairs of men, not no boys. A lot of us, I'm going to tell you this, Lynch-Bey, but don't tell them I said that. You act like a sucker. Say what you mean to mean what you say. We don't have time for games. This is Drew Ali. He said, I've suffered much and severely in the past through misunderstanding of what the movement was dedicated to. We need to walk on water like Jesus did in chapter 17. And when you walk on water, see, we're not talking about that literally. I told you we're talking about the book of the 7 seals. When they're talking about walking on water, it's talking about walking above the things of the world. Walk above hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. This is what Jesus did. See, when Jesus said, "I make you fishers of men," see, we're talking about the Piscean age, just like he said. But this is no longer the Piscean age. This is the age of Aquarius. You know, the Fifth Dimension song that years ago, when some of you wasn't even born. They said the age of Aquarius. So we're talking about the age of spirituality. We're talking about man not being the body nor the soul, but being the spirit and a part of Allah. Let's get into the spirit. Yesterday we was on a reservation with the Canaanites, the Native Americans, because we were still in celebration of Nabi's daughter, and we was into the spirit. We wasn't into the flesh, because the flesh don't think and the bones don't reason. And in order for us to be able to understand the great God Allah and his work, we got to get into the spirit. You heard this brother teaching over here. He was saying some of the great fall through which Jesus came was Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Myrrh. But when I see all these pictures on television, they got Jesus look like Charles Heston. And that's disrespectful to me because I ain't like you. I don't work with the government. I don't do none of those things. I just try to learn to love instead of hating, teach those things necessary to make our members better citizens. So he was talking about the brother that he was talking to and telling me why he don't attend his meeting, because he ain't there. You beating a dead horse, he ain't there. You come to the Moor-Sign Temple because you think it's something sweet now. It's a fad now. Everybody want to be a Moor, as they say. Moor, not M-O-E, M-O-O-R. Everybody, but that's who you are anyway. Because man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. So you just come here because you're looking for something. Like I said the other week, some people come here, everybody got a different agenda. So I'm not going to temple no more. That's just like Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee got married with one of his cousins and said, I ain't going to be a Chinese no more. I'm not going to be a Chinese, I'm going to be a German now. They look at him like he's crazy. So when you call yourself Negro, color, and black, when you say buy black, Europeans jump up and happy because they took your nationality away. If Jew Ali wouldn't have came and brought us that flag, the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center, and the 5 points represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, no telling where we'll be at today because they already took the flag down over there. And they got a flag over there in Israel, and they said this is the flag of David. If it's the flag of David, and David is the father of Solomon, and Solomon got a different flag, something wrong with this picture. But we perpetrate the idea. We honor the idea. And when you begin to go honor this Christmas thing, it's disrespectful to Jew Ali, who is the last prophet in these days and time, and it's disrespectful to your children. You know, just like I'm going to buy my daughter something and tell her Santa Claus bought it. When you know good and well, it ain't no such thing but a myth made of fleeting winds. But you taking on them type of ideas, and then you can walk around like you're a man. Remind me of them dudes that was in the joint all day in the joint. They with them demonstrating, then they come on talking about man. You ain't no man, man. You're a man because everything man is, male is not man. Everything female is not woman. But when you go into the wilderness, you talking to yourself. Say, I need to overcome these things. I need to let these things out of my life in this era of time. Because in this era of time, you're Moorish. There might have been a time you was a Hebrew or whatever you wanted to be. But in this era of time, because we had many different names. We were the Hebrew Israelite. We had many different names. But the history in this era of time, when the brother talk about Queen Isabel and Ferdinand and all them, the history came through the Moors. In 711, in 1492, and then we came through this government, we had a national name. And the national name was Moorish. See, so you can't be an Israelite in this era of time. In this era of time, during the advent of slavery. Matter of fact, Drew Ali even told us that we wasn't Ethiopians. Because the slave trade didn't come through Ethiopia. So Noble Drew Ali is the last prophet in these days and time who came to hook us back up with the families of nations. If Noble Drew Ali wouldn't have came, you wouldn't have been hooked up with the family of nations. Just like I was telling Gamaliel. I said, if you don't pay your dues, keep in line with all necessities, attend your meeting, you ain't really a part of the Moorish Science Temple. Somebody could tell you something. A brother told him that he was a lifelong member of the Moorish Science Temple of America. My literature don't tell me that. Drew Ali tell me in Act 2 and all my acts to pay my dues, keep in line with all necessities, and then I'm entitled to the name of faithful. And if you don't attend your meeting, you get on to, like, reason why we don't have no people to come here that call themselves Moorish America to dispute Noble Drew Ali and give their understanding. Come to Sunday school, because it ain't worth our time. You ain't coming on here with no hats on your head. You not coming on here talking about no, you a Moorish national. You ain't coming on here with none of that because you might don't leave. Because we serious about this thing here. See? So Drew Ali, Allah's prophet, came to save you and I from the wrath of Allah. Before Noble Drew Ali, we didn't even have a flag that flied in the United Nations. You know, we was calling ourselves Negro, colored, and black. Drew Ali say, and this is a Christmas present for you. He said, Negro is a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water. He said, black, according to science, means death. Now, Noble Drew Ali told us about belief, faith, and fruition. Can a man become fruition on the plane of things made manifest? Yes, he can. Let me explain it. Say you're trying to stop smoking cigarettes and you're trying to stop drinking. Okay, and then you wrestle with it on the plane of soul or wherever you wrestle with it in the wilderness. And when you stop doing it, when you overcame that foe, then you are fruition in that lesson. Then you got to move on to become fruition in another lesson. Now, I'm going to stop eating pork now. I'm over here to try to conquer another lesson. I already conquered this over here. I'm fruition. So belief is what man thinks. Faith is what man knows. And fruition is man himself, the truth. So I'm in the truth from that. So now I'm over here to try to stop eating pork. Eating pork don't have nothing to do with religion. Eating pork has something to do with intelligence. Because you can't even poison a pig. If a poisonous snake in the world bit him, all he gonna do is go up and go back down and you gonna eat it? They give you an apple in his mouth. They give you the apple in his mouth because of the ingredient that's within it. And they say about the apple, you know, Adam's apple. The apple is lovely to the eye, pleasant to the smell, but its cores are full of bitterness and gall. So here at Temple 2, Portland, Oregon, we don't follow man. We follow Allah and the prophet. We ain't hung up in nobody. We hung up in the prophet. We pay our dues. We keep in line with all necessities. Our charter is legal because we're registered with the state, and all we're trying to do is teach this gospel. I was over there with Naveed's brothers today, the one a year younger than him. See, and we were talking today, and I seen that brother being one of the great leaders of the Moorish Zion Temple of America. So we're on a mission. And Naveed, whatever took place with you and your family, Allah got something greater in store for you. He ain't gonna put no more on you than you could bear. You think you say that you love Allah and not be tested? You're going to be tested every step of the way. Let him come. He was talking about boxing gloves. Man, I would tell Lucifer this, I would tell Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast this morning. Chump, if you don't watch yourself, I'll hit you with a hook off a jab. Because we're into the book now. You know, none can serve two masters at the same time. What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to just shut my mouth. We're tired of talking because we'll be off the show for 3 weeks. So what I'm going to do right now is recite the Moorish American prayer, because it's the source from which we draw our strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Sing that sister song.
Why do I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why do I feel so empty and long for heaven and home, when Jesus is my portion? A constant friend is he. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches over me.
The young brother was downright eloquent with his misinformed soliloquy. He said using nigger affectionately among ourselves takes the negativity out of the word, but that no other race of people can use it ever but us. And you thought that kind of reasoning existed only in the Twilight Zone. Then again, the Twilight Zone was a TV show, and the plight of black America is tragic reality. Somebody said the revolution would not be televised. They didn't say anything about our devolution, which is well documented. You see it every day in our disrespect for one another. You can hear it in our sad excuse for artistry.